Hey, my name is PolishLynx, and I counsel the reverberate across the White Hall. Anyway, we continue the irae, and let's see what's going on with the new chapter. It had been launched to neither hurt nor even intimidate. However, one would have to possess a very special frame of mind not to label the action deranged. Those that knew the man in particular would most likely have been rendered speechless by this sight.
ちゃあ、やっぱダメだな。当たんね。
Shiro reloaded his pistol with a self-mocking smile, a simple process but one he could barely carry out with his shaking fingers. That was the main reason why he couldn't hit his target. Shiro continued firing, while casually humming a song or two. It had only been 2 days since he lost his dominant arm, but with his sense of balance all messed up, he had some serious trouble with precise aiming. To be fair, for a normal man wouldn't even be able to stand under the same circumstances. At this point, only divine intervention could make the bullets from his Desert Eagle, a weapon he had trouble holding steady in his right hand, reach their target. Hell, he had already wasted a good 30 rounds with this nonsense. However, little by little his bullets drew closer to the target. Following each miss, Shiro would recalculate his aim and adjust the position of his mangled body accordingly. He wasn't all that keen on the whole thing, but now was not the time to mind appearances. This new approach to shooting might have been only something he came up with on the spot, but he needed to get his aim steady for tonight, no matter what. And finally... that was the true nature of his deranged actions. Kasumi's eyes was tied to a 10-meter tall cross in the middle of the hall in a crucial position, and Shiro had been trying to shoot off the chains holding her. He might have had no other options, but these still were the actions of a sane man. The hall was all about deserted, safe for them, and Kasumi herself remained unconscious, which meant there was no one around to stop Shiro from doing things that would otherwise give the likes of Renfuji a heart attack. It took him 45 bullets, but he managed to ultimately achieve his goal without killing Kasumi in the process. The girl's body, now freed from the most of its shackles, proceeded to slowly slide down the trunk of the cross. It seemed like he got the hang of it. Next bullet hit the row supporting Kasumi's wave, and the girl plummeted down straight in the Hakenkreuz flag Shiro had set in place as a safety net. Even he knew that trying to catch a person falling from a 10-meter height with a single arm was generally not a good idea.
こんなもんに包まれんのはお前も嫌だろうが、贅沢言うなよ。それで、ほらバカスミ、朝だ、起きろ。
Shiro came close to the obsidian round table atop which, clad in the sheet of the Nazi flag Kasumi continued her slumber. He lightly tapped her on the cheek a few times, prompting her to eventually open her eyes.
Yo, お目覚めか？
シロ。ここどこ？
なんだお前、覚えてねえのか？
It was none other than she who guided him this way, after all.
私は別に何が何だか。桜井さんと学校に行って、それで。
ああ、もういい。よくわかんねえんならわかんねえでも。
A lengthy explanation would only be a pain in the ass, and Shiro did not feel like overanalyzing the situation. If she didn't remember anything, it was probably just his mind playing tricks on him in a drug-induced stupor. Not like the truth meant much, anyway.
立てるかい、お姫様。王子様が迎えに来たよ。
なんかよくわかんないけど、あんたはどっちかっていうと人さらいでしょ？
そりゃ言えて妙だな。まあ似たようなもんさ。ほら、立ちな。
Smiling, Shiro offered his right hand to Kasumi, who still in somewhat of a daze was about to take it when...
ちょっとあんた、何よその怪我。
あ？
じゃないわよ。なんでそんなんなってんのよ。
You know, now is not really the time to think about that, and talk about that.
お前が寝てる間にちょっと狂犬と喧嘩してたな。
ふざけないで。
Shiro spoke the truth, for he knew the girl wouldn't understand even if he explained everything in detail, and even assuming she did, all that would await him was an hour-long sermon on how to behave like a proper man. Understanding the futility of the conversation, Shiro raised his right hand in a mock display of surrender. Kasumi was about to say something, but seemed to swallow her words in last minute. Instead, proceeded to hand at Shiro's left shoulder with a piece of cloth she tore off from her uniform. What? Why would you do that?
本当にもう。あんただって、バカなことばっかり。
Pretty sure he has it. You know, bandaged already.
どうするのよ、これ。どうなんのよ、これ。なんであんたたちばっかり、いつも勝手に盛り上がって、勝手にいろいろなくしてきて。
Well, maybe because someone was stupid enough to come here.
ま、そのうち生えてくんだろ。
トカゲの尻尾じゃないんだよ。
Firing a heavy gun at his desert eagle caused the stitching in Shiro's left shoulder to the ear, making it bleed again. She made sure to put some force into her bandage to show him she was serious, but Shiro simply answered her with a smile.
痛くないの。
こういう時、大概の男は痛くねえって言うもんだ。
It was the truth. His body had long since lost the ability to feel pain. Same went for his sense of smell and taste. It likely wouldn't be long until his eyes and ears gave out too. And then his brain would turn to mush. A massive pain for sure, but pretty convenient in his own way. If a good night's rest couldn't fix him up, he might as well live what little life he had left to the fullest. Or steal the secret of immortality from one of those psychos, for he seemed to have already missed the boat on that one.
つうわけで、いい加減離れろよ、お前。いつまでも女みたいにベソベソと泣いてんな。
私、女だもん。
女らしい女は嫌いなんだよ、俺。
If she needed someone to embrace, she should have picked Ren. At least that would have resulted in an entertaining quarrel to lift Shiro's spirits. But as he was about to completely lose himself in thought,
何？
Kasumi raised her head as she felt Shiro's muscles suddenly tense up. The next moment, however, the young man's hand grasped the back of her head and suddenly pushed her face into his chest.
何よ、いきなり何すんのよ。
黙ってろ、お前。
And close your eyes while you read it. The words had been at the tip of his tongue, but Shiro decided to swallow them, instead focusing all his attention on the area directly behind him. It didn't take long for Kasumi to also sense the abnormality in the air, or rather, she was allowed to sense it.
シロ。
Her normally laid-back childhood friend, whose easygoing attitude would endure even the harshest of situation, was now trembling like a leaf. She could not believe it, but being squeezed so tight in his embrace, she possessed no means to dismiss it as a momentary error of her senses. Even his heart was beating like a drum.
そりゃまあ、そうそう甘くはねえと思ってたけどよ。
He did not expect to run to a thing like that. He could feel, rise up from the very bottom of his heart, filling his entire being.
面白くなってきた。誰だよ、お前。
He had a guess or two for. He stood at the edge of the obsidian round table, in between the seats labeled Zex and Zeban. In other words, the seat right in front of him was.
名前、知らねえんだ。教えてくれよ。
Dryzay.
カール・クラフト。
Kasumi took a gasp and began shivering all over, a fall not from the overwhelming pressure nor the aura of malice hanging heavy in the air. After all, she showed no reaction when the obsidian-clad shade first appeared. The thing that surprised both her and Shiro was something else entirely, a sensation that could only be described as foreknowledge. After all.
こりゃまた何の冗談だよ。
そんな、嘘だよ。
His voice, his presence, his mannerisms.
どうしたのかな、お嬢さん。私が何か君の知人にでも似ていたかね。
They looked the same, like twins. The man sitting on the seat labeled Dryzane was the mirror image of a certain someone they knew better than anyone.
あなた、誰？
Carl Kraft! He just said... Kasumi addressed the enigma in a trembling voice, encountering a ghost or a demon would have likely affected her less than this man. He had his voice, and the same air about him, yet what lurked behind those eyes seemed nothing like the man she knew.
清掃13騎士団国円卓第13位。
And behind the sweet and gentle, in a sense, even meek disposition of the man lay...
副司令カール・クラフト・メルクリウス。捨てた名だが この場ではそう言った方が理解は早いか。
A nature most colors. He paid them no more hate than he would a piece of furniture. At the very least, that was Kasumi's first impression of him.
愚足の友人ならば歓待せねばなるまいな。
A terrifying sensation of despair and repulsion took hold of Kasumi's heart. Nemo ante mortem beatus, chapter 13. Here we go. I kicked the remnants of the church's gates out of the way, following after the weird sword as it suddenly zapped out of its place in the ground. And what I saw there.
久しいな、注意。
ええ。お久しぶりです。ハイドリヒ教。
Three people stood at the far end of the chapel right in front of the altar. A four of the astonished Sakura and the man I would never forget, Reinhard Heydrich, at the head of the obsidian round table. In between them stood a third person, a blonde woman wearing a soldier's uniform. Where did she come from? What on earth was going on here?
なぜ槍を止められたのです？あなたにその気があったなら、私たちなど薄髪に過ぎないはず。
それを知って、なお立ちふさがる K の勇士が見たかった。悪くないぞ、バルキュリア。大義だ。やはり見せてくれる。
She's a cutie.
なるほど。まんまとおびき出されたというわけですね。ベアトリス。
I could not contain my amazement at the sound of the name.
ベアトリス。
Beatrice. Or Beatrice, sounds by same. Maybe that's the correct thing. Well, never mind. Wasn't that the name of the member who died 11 years ago? Why was she here, alive and acting like as though she came to protect Sakurai? Either way, now was not the time to be lost in thought. If she came here to help us, then all the better. I only had to proceed with my initial goal. I took a long leap towards Sakurai, coiled my arms around her waist, then leaped backwards again. I had no idea what was going on, but being that close to the golden bastard couldn't have been safe.
大丈夫かよ、お前。
A bit embarrassed, but I guess she's fine for now.
藤君。
神父は。
Did she kill him? If that was the case, then where did this body go?
ここだ。
Reinhard answered my beveled rant with a smile, thin smile. He pressed his left palm against his chest before narrowing his pair of golden eyes.
生産杯は我が血肉。あれは器の管理が終わったゆえ、褒美として英霊の列に加えたまでだ。いずれまた会える。
What if I don't want to?
K もしかりだ、バルキュリア。レオンハルトの力を借りたとはいえ、そうもたやすく魂の具現化など普通はできぬ。
分かっています。私が出てこれたのは K が助けを求めたこと以上に、あなたの力がより完全に近づいているということ。7つのスワス地下にゆかりのある魂はもはや半ば以上にエインフェリア化が始まっている。
そうだ。そしてあと一つ残っている。そこで私から提案しよう。
Straightening his back, Reinhard retracted his lance. At the same time, Beatrice, too, sheathed her blade and promptly took a few steps back toward us.
さっきはありがとう。迷惑をかけてごめんなさいね。
With that line, I finally noticed that the sorting current was without a doubt.
あんたが4代目だったのか。
ええ。でもその話は後。ケイも、いつまでボケっとしてるの？そんなんじゃ彼氏に呆れられちゃうわよ。本当に、いつまでも子供なんだから。うるさい。私は。
She shook off my arms and stood on her own 2 feet. Well, at least it seemed like she got some energy back. The problem, however, was the man facing us from the other end of the hall. Reinhard considered us three for a moment before parting his lips to speak.
ケイラに人選を任せよう。聖筆を回すには5式を要する。王家の枠はこの器があれば事足りるが、シュライバーの穴埋めがいる。
Then you have a problem.
そして、彼らは3人だ。
I don't know what you're talking about. After giving each of us a brief glance, he uttered the most insane thing I'd ever heard in my life.
殺し合え。
Not interested.
それをもって第8を開く逃げとする。残る2人はアルベドの代替と完成した私に未知を見せてくれるもの。その配役をここで選べ。五色に連なる条件は私が英雄と認めた魂であることだ。故にビビしく見せてくれよ。ケイラの道のりが弾け消えゆくその様を、閃光を。
こいつ。
何をいきなり。
こちらで選んでやってもよいのだぞ。だがその場合、誰になるかはおのずとわかろう。
ええ。至極簡単な問いです。閣下。
While Sakura and I were still pale as ghosts, Beatrice, by contrast, was very hard in a stern, direct tone.
私に、刑を切れと、おっしゃるのですね。
しかり。それが優先順位だ。注意。カールの代替には、私を楽しませる義務があり、そして K は、すでに半ばがエインフェリアと化している。この場で最も不要なものが誰なのかなど、あえて論ずるまでもない。所詮、早いか遅いかの問題であろう。これは慈悲だ。褒美と。
After all, they would all eventually become a part of game. It was their destiny. Hence, there was no need for doubts or hesitation. Reinhardt regarded us in an arrogant manner, completely disinterested. In our peril, yet a certain air of near unbreakable mildness still lingered about him. The bastard gave that command like it was the most natural thing in the world.
愛しい男を、たおやめを、私との争いから解放する唯一にして最後の木だ。守ると誓った者が目の前で豪華に顔を歪める様など見るに耐えまい。故に解釈を、安らかにバルハラへと行けるよう、己が思い人を手にかけよう。悪くない話であろうが。
He was neither scornful nor patronizing, rather I could see genuine consideration in his eyes. The guy was serious, as crazy as that sounded. He genuinely thought that a battle to the death would cause us less food, and trying to challenge him, it would believe it to be a form of mercy.
なるほど。これが。ええ。よくわかったでしょ。
This was Reinhard Heydrich, the head of the Obstinate Table, the lord to whom the likes of Wilhelm Schreiber and Trifa answered, the harbinger of beguiling light. He was neither human nor beast. Devil was the sole word I could come up with to describe him. The bastard was so far off the deep end, I couldn't help but rely on banalities to explain his nature.
アリをめでる戦車ほど、気味の悪いものはない。人語を介する天才ほど、危険に感じるものもない。
He considered destruction and carnage the highest form of blessing. He believed that being swallowed to become a part of him meant the utmost honor one could receive. He was Mephistopheles, the beginning light.
それでどうする？
We had but one answer to spit back at him.
断る！
Any further conversation would be pointless.
ここでお前を倒せば全部終わる！
あなたは、この世にいてはならない。第8が解放され、手に負えなくなってしまう前に。
Reinhard, gazing down at the three of us, all ready to plunge ourselves into the little battle, could hardly contain laughter spilling forth from his lips. According to Beatrice, the bastard's power had yet to reach its full capacity. If we ever wished to bring him down, it had to be now!
カールよ。聞こえるか？
No, he is busy with other tune.
K の助言、真摯に受け止め実行したいが。
The massive lance shifted in his grip, its golden tip trembled as something invisible emerged from it. A moment later, a powerful sense of imbalance assaulted me, as if the ground itself had been swept out from under my feet.
しかし、これはそうもいくまい。 部下の意も組まねばならん。
いけない。
Beatrice leapt towards Reinhardt as a note sensation of weightlessness overtook me. Sakura and I, realizing something ominous was afoot, followed after her.
ザミエル。
Right, even without Schreiber under his command, 2 of his Imperial Guards still remained.
マキナよ。
The Crimson Knightess and the Somber Knight, Rubedo and Nigredo, the 2 indomitable captains of the Einherjar.
ケイラの獲物だ。くらえ。
ラボー、マインヘル。
ベアトリス。
A gust of crimson fire swept forth from Reinhardt's left shoulder, engulfing Beatrice in its seething embrace. As for myself, a black face with the power of a battering drum, having suddenly emerged from Reinhardt's right shoulder, came crashing down on me, dwarfing even Tubalcain in size. The goddamn freak! The 3 of us were swept apart in an instant, although I leapt into motion just in time to barely evade a bright blow from the giant. The terrible gust of air that came to life as he swung his monster of an arm sent me flying as if my body was a mere pebble before his might. I felt as if gravity itself had taken permanently from the pocket dimension, now keeping us prisoners, lacking a beginning and an end, a seeding or firm foundation, a void of fierce vertigo boiling in the fury of his golden flame. As I was being flung around in the violent whirlwind of impenetrable darkness, I finally understood what was happening.
その男は墓に住み、あらゆるものも、あらゆる鎖も、あらゆるすべてをもってしてもつなぎ止めることができない。彼は爆鎖をちぎり、枷を壊し、狂い泣き叫ぶ墓の主。この世のありとあらゆるものすべて彼を抑える力を持たない。
The world itself twisted before my eyes as the invocation reverberated in the air. From within the seething sea of molten gold rose an army of myriad skeletons, waiting forth with no end, numbering in the millions. They emerged and jolted to each other, their bones forming a fortress of the fallen.
ゆえ、神は問われた。貴様は何者か。
This was the world Reinhardt prayed for.
愚問なり、無知もうまい。知らぬならば答えよう。我が名はレギオン。
A throne built from a sea of corpses forged for Reinhardt Heydrich, alone to rest upon.
ブリア。
The golden chaos erupted with a thunderous roar, swallowing me, Sakura and Beatrice into its depth. Before us stretched the sacred halls of Valhalla.
グラズヘイム、グランカムミフューフトベルトール。
And so here we are. Beatrice Kirhizan could no longer escape. She struggled with all her might, but the hellish flames coiled around her throat like fingers, their iron grip mercilessly preventing any and all attempts at flight.
ビッテブルグ少佐。
そう嫌うなキルヒアイゼン。60年ぶりだ。積もる話もあまたあろう。
私は。
ああ、悪くない。よく戻ってきた。嬉しいぞ。クリストフの茶番に乗ってやった甲斐もある。よくぞあのゲスを成敗した。褒美を受け取るがいい。
An inferno violent enough to melt even steel's wood, Beatrice, and plunged into the depths of chaos like a giant snake, carrying the 2 women to their designated field of battle.
何人たりとも邪魔をさせん。貴様と私と2人だけのあの頃へ。カイリー、共に語らおう。待ち望んだぞ、この時を。
私も。
Enveloped by a fresh wave of hellfire, Beatrice steeled her resolve. She knew it would eventually come down to this. In fact, she too had been awaiting this hour just the same. The Crimson Knightess before her was but a shadow of her former superior, a mere husk of the woman she once respected from the bottom of her heart. The 2 of them had braved countless battlefields together, weathering storms of gunfire on several occasions. Beatrice could hardly bear to look at her in this state. The sight filled her chest only with anguish. Nonetheless, the immortal princess of the blue sea, swallowing her tears, addressed the other with a loud cry.
あなたを救います、ウィッテンブルグ少佐。剣も誇りも人であることも捨てたあなたに、私は絶対負けたりしない。
Stern and vigorous, yet foolish and tricking of inexperience, the faint Valkyrie of True, the lily of the battlefield.
浮かせ小娘だ。
Eleanor demanded that the girl remain in her service for all eternity.
なんだこりゃ。
Before they knew it, the underground of the church, the chamber of the obsidian table, had been filled with countless skeletons. They emerged from walls, the floor, ceiling, everywhere, enveloping the room in a white mass of bones.
遅かったな。もう逃げられん。
Still on his seat at the table, Mercury's lips curved into a faint smile.
獣殿の想像は何者であれ壊せんよ。ここに飲まれたが最後、千度の列に加わるしか道はない。だが。
Without even glancing at the man, Shiro pulled the trigger of his gun, shattering Mercury's cranium. Yet the obsidian shade continued his tirade, seemingly unaffected by losing half his head.
そうだ、あがけ、どこまでも。所詮魔人連星など放末に耐えられぬ私のような弱者の技だ。君ら人である者こそが、あるいは怪奇を断つ鍵やもしれぬ。その魂に嫉妬すら覚える。ぐちゃぐちゃとまあ、わけのわかんねえことを。
The bullet had most certainly hit him right in the head, but instead, a causing damage it seemed to have been swallowed into the dark mist the moment it touched him. For not a single scratch blemished the obsidian shade once Shiro turned around to face him.
見れば見るほどありえねえよ、てめえの面は。
Clad in darkest froze that made the contours of his lean frame obscured like a hazy shadow, the long-haired man did not seem older than 20, his face a mirror image of a person Shiro knew all too well.
あなた、さっきレンのお父さんだって。
Katsumi spoke with a trembling voice. The shock from the semi overwhelmed her even more so than the emerge of the castle of the dead. She needed an answer, no matter how terrifying it might be.
答えて。あなたはレンの何なの。
つより、レンがお前のなんだ。
Father, son, Shiro would not believe such rival. Still, the man before him must have been related to Ren in one way or another.
具足というのはただの比喩。
The obsidian Mercuryman answered their animosity and befuddlement with a thin smile. Such a poignant question, the emotion man called friendship was indeed most dazzling. Even a jester like himself could comprehend the beauty of that ephemeral glimmer. Thus, once asked, he could do naught but provide an answer.
あれは我が分身、我が創造物。
The transmutation of a demon. If he could not wield the girl and her power, then all he had to do was to create one who could.
永劫を駆け抜け、怪奇の輪を超越し破壊する。元来すべては彼のために私が用意したものだ。
The Longinus dry Zane Olten had been merely an experiment, a little test before putting his true design into motion.
あれは私の生物。
A sentient terminal that had been in better synchrony with Evikite, his sorcery, than anyone else.
怒りの火の奏者だ。
A somber voice, heavy like an iron hammer, reached my ears through the raging whirlwind.
兄弟苦しく待ったぞこの時を
Huh? You shitting me now? I couldn't tell how long it took, maybe a moment or perhaps an eternity, but before I knew it, I had found myself in an unfamiliar place.
ここは
Under the gaze of skies the color of leaves, I landed on a stone floor cold as ice, and reddish-brown like congealed blood. It took but a mere glance to understand that thousands of men had lost their lives in that place. It looked almost like an architectural design of olden times, dating back to ancient Rome. This massive thing looked just like it, and I collapsed onto my knees, assailed by an abrupt, splitting headache and a sudden lack of air, like my lungs had ceased to function. It felt as if something mortally ominous had been trying to tear through my chest and skull to escape into the open.
懐かしいだろう。
A stout man towered before me, clad in black, his eyes like those of a dead fish, yet an undeniable aura of ruination hung about him. I remembered seeing him before.
マキナ
That was what they called him, a word that described him in two senses. A machine whose sole desire was to put an end to all, to lower the currents of the play of life. The sole survivor and champion of this gauntlet of malice, a man who had been born from the depths of thousands upon thousands of soldiers.
俺とお前が生まれた場所だ。
Gotz von PolishLynx, once a war hero, now a marshal with no recollection of his past glory. He and I.
兄弟。この地で我らの血をすすごう。
We were brothers in the strongest sense of the word. We shared the same flesh and blood. Came from the same father. Kinda.
歓迎しよう、レオンハルト。
Left behind by the other two, Kay alone stood in the white and exquisite hall, face to face with the golden beast. Not even a semblance of the church remained. It had transformed to a majestic throne room that reminded Kay more of a lavish and ancient temple than a sanctuary to the mid-Christian faith. In any case, she could tell what had happened.
ここはウェベルスブルグ城。
黒煙卓始まりの地であり。
我らが魂のバルハラだ。
では最後のグランギニョルを始めようか。
There he goes again about that.
若いケイラは知らぬであろうが、昔日の我々は皆この城で語らい、共に錬磨した。
The castle of Vavalsburg was the gathering place of the Obsidian Cable when it was still but an innocent eccentricity of a select few men.
登場を認められた騎士は100を超える。ヒムラ、ヘス、ハウスホーファー、ディードリヒ。
Oh my god, I was afraid he was going to say all the
マル
names.
セイユ。そしてルーデル、ウィットマン。な
Whoops. The titans of the Third Reich, the heroes of the Nazi regime, if you can call them. Reinhardt turned his back to Kay and started up the steps to his throne with sluggish movements, as if savoring the memories of his nostalgic surroundings.
ここは彼らが定めたバルハラ。死後の英雄が集うグラズヘイムだ。もっとも当時のメンツで未だ残っているのは私しかおらんがな。彼らは皆この城になってしまった。
They well told the promised fifth universe built from the bones of millions, yet depending on the perspective, it was also but a pit of chaos and abyss, no more. Death in this place meant being shackled to their bony walls for an eternity. Having finally reached the throne, Reinhardt faced Kay again.
故にさてどうなるか。マキナが敗れるとは思えんが、もしそうなったところでむしろ私には喜ばしいだけで問題はない。バルキュリアにしても同じことだ。彼女ではザミエルを倒せぬし、それで枠が欠けるわけでもない。
なぜ
That was different from what she heard before. In fact, Reinhardt himself said that they would need a substitute for Shramba. It took time for any career to be revived. They couldn't possibly make it in time till the 7th seal opened.
今この城中にはカールがいる。ここで倒れた魂ならあれは即座に錬成するぞ。なぜならベルリン崩壊の時、この城を海気が及ばぬ領域として固めたのは彼と私と、そしてイザーク。以前その方は生きており、中でもカールの手際は桁が違う。蘇生、復活、再構築。この城で果てたものをこの城の中に限り 際限なく再現して連生し増殖させる。ケイラの求めた真なるスアスチカによる祝福とは、それを城の外でも起こすことだ。いや、この城を外に流れ出させるというべきかな。どちらにせよ大差ない。
だったら
This was no good. She couldn't imagine a way out of the situation. At this point, the pentagram would remain intact regardless of what happened. Even should all parties fall dead during their respective battles through some form of miracle, the sorcerer would simply revive them right away as part of the peace army of Enchariar. The only move to hinder their scam. In other words, killing them on an already open swastika had been seen with the emergence of the castle. And all because they found the idea of opening the 8th swastika with anything but a large-scale display of carnage would beyond imagination.
無限に死者を飲み込み続け、時が来れば溢れ出させる混沌。
Reinhardt made a self-motive smile.
悪魔だの地獄だのと、陳腐に評されてきたのはそういう理屈なのだろうよ。実情は、そしてケイラは、私に死者を供給するバルキュリアだ。屍を積み上げる築城の将。万魔殿を建造する強欲と言ってもよいか。何にせよ大義である。カールが登場するようになって以来、その役目は今も変わらぬ。レオンハルトよ、これでもまだ私のために屍を積み上げるつもりは失せたというのか。無論私に従うことでそれなりの益もあるぞ。答えるがいい。
私は
Kay hesitated. Her feelings had not wavered, nor did she feel like abandoning her struggle. It was just that she could not understand. Why had he been so obsessed with the construction of the castle, and why on earth did he require outside help? If playing at war was all he desired, he should have done so on his own without involving them.
幸多き人生ではあるまい。これまでどれだけの涙を、どれだけの血を流してきた。決して愉快ではなかろうし、二度としたいとも思うまい。だが断言して、その道は終わる。仮に私を倒したとしよう。カールの気が変わるとしよう。しかしその後に残るのは、再び獅子の剣を取らざるを得ぬ少女の姿だ。K は何度繰り返しても、この世は
That is the hellish nature of this world, this ghetto.
ゆえ、それを破壊する。そのために屍を積み上げろ。カールの術は、そうした怪奇の流れを乱す。死者の魂が一箇所に留まり続ければ、円環運動は阻害され、許容を超えれば弾け飛ぶのみ。決戦と原理は同じだ。とはいえ、ことはそう簡単でもない。何せ敵は、有史以来人類を縛り続けてきた不動のシステム。致命的な決戦症が起きるまでの遊びは膨大にあり、千や万ごときでは追いつかぬ。ならば、やるべきことは一つであろう。すべてを飲み込む。
Reinhardt uttered the words so naturally that for a moment Kay had trouble understanding what he had meant.
過去に座しまし、今今し、そして未来に生まれるすべてを飲み込む。私の総軍は膨れ上がる。そうして歓喜は飽和し、溢れ出す。流れいでり、システムは書き換えられていくだろう。K のような嘆きに満ちた人生が無限に繰り返されることなどないように。
何をバカな。
Utter insanity. Reinhardt might have transcended all mortal men that ever lived, but not even he could sustain the wave of billions of souls. To Kay, he now looked more like a raving lunatic than a godlike being.
行うのみだ。壊したことがないものを見つけるまで。
Reinhardt regarded her with a smile. This was not a question of possible or impossible. He would simply do it.
私はそのような生き方しか知らん。そして見事にことをなせば、おそらくこの法則を作った者にも出会えるだろう。それが神であろうと、悪魔であろうと。胸が躍ると思わんか？たわけた創造主とやらいうものに、我ら総軍、無限の海域より脱却して闘争を挑むのだ。私が指揮し、ケーラー・エンフェリアが先陣を務める。まあもっとも、それは私の個人的欲求に過ぎんがな。カールはまた別の理由と方法を持っていよう。所詮今の状況など我々にとってただの前座だ。ゆえ、と
The glimmer of the beast's golden eyes left Kay spellbound, urging the girl to sacrifice herself, to build her soul and bones onto the eternal walls of Valhalla.
これは決定事項だ、レオンハルト。K の選択は2つに1つ。
To bend the knee of her own will, or have her soul be subdued before his magnificence. She knew how foolish and utterly ridiculous it was to try and challenge Reinhardt alone, and action only for the mentally unsound. She knew but...
愚問です。
Kay read that Hirokane, having spent all her strength in the battle with Valeritrifa, she could barely stand on her own 2 feet before this supreme being, let alone engage in a proper fight with him. She felt like her very soul might evaporate any minute. However...
引きません。断ると、ついさっきも言ったはずです。
Even when faced with a checkmate.
私はバカで負けず嫌いで、聞き分けのない子供だから。
She would flip the board upside down, betting on a miracle. It was too early to give up.
K はゲットーの残酷さを知らん。私に刃を向けることが前にも通った道ならどうする？2度も3度も、いや1000度万度に至るまで苦痛と恐怖に苛まれながら生を終えることもあるまい。
Kay answered Reinhardt's lament with a wry smile.
仮に私が投降して、あなたの基地感とやらが失せるとも思えませんよ。ハイドリ卑怯。いや、私がくだらないと決まっているからこそ、あなたはそう感じるのでしょう。
In that case, she would simply have to remain loyal to her older selves, and believe in her future self.
確かに私には、あなた方のおっしゃることがわからない。
Ghetto? Recurrence? She never heard of nor felt such things.
だけど私はバカなりに、いつも懸命に生きてきました。岐路に迷って、間違って、後悔しながらも諦めず。
She pressed on even as her very soul begged her to quit.
そうしてここに立っています。それを誇りに思っています。私は、最後までそうありたい。
She would make choices by her soul for herself. It mattered little what she did or didn't do in her alternative lives, or what destiny itself had dictated.
くだらない。あなた方は、何より自分を信じられない弱い人だ。そんなものは取るに足らないと、無理をしてでも胸を張り、自分の選択に苦しみながらも背負っていくことができる人を。
Kay knew of one such man. She might have been overestimating him, a manifestation of love sees no faults in a sense, but that was how she truly felt, and the very reason she would choose him. There was no way she'd allow the Golden Beast to mock her decision.
そんなたわごとで片付けるのは許さない。今の私がここにあるのは、何よりもそれを選んだおかげだから。
なるほど。
Reinhardt simply acknowledged Kay's outburst.
その言葉、胸に迫る。否定はせぬよ。確かに私もカールもつまらぬ男だ。もはや長年の癖に等しい。無意識のうち、局面において良手も悪手も数十は思い描き試してしまう。別に K の選択を貶めるような意図はないのだがな。まあ よかろう。
Reinhardt languidly motioned for Kay to come closer, urging her to attack him, provided she truly believed in the veracity of her choices to that extent.
私に道を見せてみろ。失望はさせてくれるなよ。
言われなくても。
Reinhardt remains seated on his throne. His lungs had been unsheathed, but it did not appear he planned to fight her on equal grounds. But Kay did not care. Reinhardt was welcome to look down at her. Their powers were on completely different levels, and even trying to imagine what the garish man would be capable of felt like a notion both futile and laughable. Now was not the time to worry about appearances, particularly since her allies were likely facing a situation just as impossible as hers.
みんなきっと同じように戦っている。
And so she would know herself to be the only one to take the easy way out.
参ります。ハイドリヒ卿。
Kay darted forward, quickly ascending the steps of the throne.
あなたは確かに無敵と言っていいほどの存在なのでしょう。
His soul carried density of a legion. Kay's sword couldn't even scratch the divine vessel, which made her understand, to a sobering degree, how utterly powerless she was against the genuine god.
だけど
Now the situation was different. A wound must have remained on his invulnerable body, a hole that Kay's sword had pierced when she defeated Valeria Trifa. It should not have healed until the ape swastika was opened. He had a little crack on his body.
私に投降するよう促したのは
Kay let out a cry upon reaching the top of the steps and plunged her sword into the beast, who still sat motionless upon his throne.
あなた自身万全ではないからでしょう。
Not even the obsidian Mercury could possibly resemble in time the Gehenna of souls that were whirled within this man. And if the Gyro succeeded in defeating the beast, all the irae in his service would likely end up incapacitated in the absence of their master. Whether it was an hour or minutes or a mere few seconds.
あなたを倒しカールクラフトを消滅させる。
Such was her only choice. No alternatives presented themselves. This was not a question of possible or impossible. She simply had to defeat him to survive.
悲しき少女だ。
The gold had yet to move an inch in response to the girl's fast approaching steel. And thus, at the summit of Valhalla, a fight that would decide the fate of everything had begun to unfold.
始まったか。
Eleanor von Wittenberg narrowed her eyes. As an anchor, she could tell the state of her master's mind.
ハイドリヒ卿は楽しんでおられる。よかったな、キルヒアイズ。あの小娘は我々と同じものになれるだろう。
Beatrice didn't respond to those words. She merely glanced around the room in silence, letting out a brief sigh.
なるほど。そういうことですか。
As one of the ancient members of the Obsidian Round Table, she of course knew this castle.
夢のないバルハラですよ、少佐。ここには嫌な記憶しかありません。マキナ教の心中をお察しします。
相変わらず口の減らんやつだな、貴様。
Not many could stand the stern and short-tempered Lenore without their blood-freezing terror. Yet there was one person in this whole world whose insolence she welcomed.
マキナの心中など知らんよ。プレンナーでもある前に偽善なことを抜かしてどうする。指をくわえて見ていただけであろうが、貴様らは。
確かにそれはおっしゃる通りですけどね。
An apt way to describe the relationship would be to liken them to a pair of sisters whose polarizing personalities only amplified the bond they shared. Yet now, those very same sisters were about to enter into a bout of life and death.
クリストフが自虐し、プレンナーが目をそらし、貴様はフラフラとうろつくばかり。今も昔も進歩がない。ゲスト間抜けとアホども。そして最後に私の手を煩わせるところまで変わらんときた。まったく。
Following a short pause, Eleanor let out a muffled snort as if reveling in the situation, unable to contain the sheer jubilance washing over her heart.
たわけだ。
Even her curses carried faint glimmers of affection.
きっとあなたはリザさんもそんな顔で殺したのでしょうね。
ほう。貴様見えていたの。
いいえ、 ですがわかります。
As the father of two Balkan Beatrice was indeed a witness to this Abrenner's demise, although she possessed no actual memories of the deed, she had been able to vaguely sense what her former superior did from the other kinds.
少佐の方こそ意外に面倒見がいいところは変わってません。私のこともリザさんのことも。
Kay and even Kain.
今のこの状況は紛れもなくあなたが誘導したものです。剣謀術数の人ではないと思ってましたが、その点は変わられましたね。
Hiding behind a veil of camaraderie, Eleanor was in truth guiding the device into the trap. She never bothered to sell her own hands directly, instead manipulating Kay and Beatrice Kain to do her bidding.
まるで副資料閣下のようですよ。
An utterance so deep in sarcasm, for there was not a single member of the obsidian table who would have enjoyed being likened to Carl Kraft.
あれはガンだ。切除せねばなるまい。
Eleanor, however, answered in calm voice. It was certainly not in her nature to take a roundabout approach. In fact, she would have loved nothing more than to care of everything with her own hands, but
私に生産杯を攻撃することは許されん。そのように誓いを立てている以上、別の者にやってもらうのが最良なのだよ。あれはクリストフに挑む気概がある。動機もある。だが押村区は力が足りない。ならばどうする？簡単なことだ。友軍の援護を煽ればいい。ブレンナーの処置を知ったと同時に、エズは速やかに浮かんだ。バルハラの事実を知れば、あのような小娘たやすく転ぶ。例の小僧に組みするよう誘導すれば、クリストフとぶつかるのは避けられる。まあ、その過程でシュライバーを失ったのは痛いがな。それも奴らが貴様を引きずり出すことに成功すれば問題ない。
the divine vessel fell, and they managed to find themselves a substitute for the void led by Albedo. There was nothing left to hinder the revival of gold.
世はすべてこともなしだ。万事会長と言っていい。貴様らごときふらふらと向きを変える風見鳥を感動するな。所詮時義だよ、キルヒアイゼン。貴様はクラフトのようだと言ったんだ。これはむしろクリストフの技だ。奴の真似事に過ぎん。進歩がないとはそういうことだ。二度も三度もあのようなゲスの手札に踊らされよって。
まあそれについては返す言葉もありませんね。
Only 8 of them still lived, 7 if one discounted Sonnenkind. As the acting commander of the obsidian table, the divine vessel played everyone like pawns on a chessboard for over 50 years. Some he used without their knowledge, some feigned allegiance with hopes of eventually outsmarting him, while others, the ones who tried to rebel, he simply destroyed. Yet this man, whom no one could too far topple, who was easily outmaneuvered by the Crimson Knightness, and in a game that wasn't particularly her strong suit either.
さらに即興。
She had enough time to weave her plots. It was likely that over half of her moves had to be improvised in the midst of action. Her approach was rough, and the victory she boasted of could, in a way, be viewed as a result brought about only by luck. Thus, Beatrice had but one question to ask.
工学のためにも教えてください。あなたは何を頼みにして、それほど強くいられるのか。
信仰だ。
Alone gave her answer without a moment's hesitation.
私は自らの忠を、部下である貴様の力を信じている。クリストフにとって、貴様は私に五色の再編を飲ませるための絵だったのだろうが、ベアトリス・キルヒアイゼンという女は、それほどまでに安くはない。貴様は勝つと、あの知れ者を排除すると信じていたよ。なぜなら私の選択が、結果としてハイドレヒ教への不忠になるなどありえんから。
Ironclad's loyalty so fervent it threatened to scourge one's body from the inside out. Absolute faith in her veracity was the very foundation of Eleanor von Wittenberg's heroic spirit.
故に私は微塵も迷わん。一片の疑いもなく 堅牢に重く固く揺るがない。邪性ごときつけ込まれる隙間もなければ救われる足元もない。わかるかキルヒアイゼン。過去の貴様らは自らの軽さによって自滅したのだ。なぜなら元来クリストフ、バレリアントリハは他者の記憶と心に入り込めた。故に生産杯を預かるという分不相応な大役を授かったのだ。あれは誰にでもなれる。
Wait a second. He was Valerian, not Valeria after all? What the hell?
ハイドリヒ教とは別の意味で無限数の混沌だ。他者の心に同調し、そのものが好ましいと思う人格、許せぬと怒る人格、つまらぬ道化と見下す人格。使い分けるのだよ、配役を。種々様々、その時々に応じてな。
An ability he might have lost alongside his body. Sorry. Yet the keen intuition he had cultivated over many years was still very much present. After all, mind control has never been one of the strongest weapons in the clergy's arsenal.
所詮貴様ら風緑。他者の一挙一動に一喜一憂する者らを図るなど、晴れに横島なる聖人などと笑わせる。一個人間として矛盾している二つ名を有する男。それはすなわちあれがレギオンだということに他ならん。貴様らからすれば複雑怪奇な狂人とでも見えたのだ。だが何のことはない。毎日別の男と話していると思えばいい。
A woman whose heart and behavior remains steadfast and unbending, regardless of the opponent. A straight, ever-consistent vector untainted by doubt or hesitation. Yet, Eleanor was hardly an exception. All three battalion commanders serving in Reinhardt's legion were such beings. Souls not even divine vessel could hope to lead astray. For only a plating clad in pure gold could ever entice the free.
身の程を知らぬ高望みだよ。奴ごときハイドリヒ教にはなれん。
A trail of thick, billowing smoke escaped Eleanor's lips as she paused to light the cigar she had between her teeth. Her words had been those of deep-rooted contempt.
それでまだ何かあるの？
いいえ、とりあえずはすっきりしました。
Beatrice shrugged her shoulders. All the old grudges and regrets meant little to her at this point.
彼には一発かましてやりたいと常々思っていましたからね。複雑な心境ではありますが、少佐の助力には感謝もしています。結果としてまた私はあの子に会えたし、死なせずにも済んだ。
On the other hand, all she appeared to get done was jump out of the frying pan and straight into the fire.
老婆心という単語もなんだか嫌なものですね。ずっと若くいられるのが結構好きではあったんですけど、私がしてあげられることはこの辺りが限度でしょう。あとは若い子たちに任せます。もともと人の世話を焼く性分ではないし。
Beatrice raised her blade with a self-mocking chuckle. From now on, it would be time to settle some personal business. Caring for, protecting and guiding the young like an elder was certainly a lovely experience, but it never was the true face of Beatrice. She was to take her superior's advice and believe in her comrades, and Windows could stop, trying to mess up my recording.
そもそも私は追いかける側の人間ですから。
And I'm in Microsoft actually with OneDrive now. Beatrice chased her superior all her life, through a turbulent era of roaring gunfire, a tempestuous spirit rich in blood and smoke and mayhem echoing with the cries of dying soldiers. Her relentless struggle would yield to nothing and no one, not to misery nor to anger or tears.
あなたがいたからです。ビッテンベルグ少佐。
Ever since her time as a naive little girl fresh out of military school.
私には敬愛する人がいます。その人はちょっと怖くて、かなり傲慢で、信じられないくらいの理想主義者で、付き合わされる部下としてはたまったものじゃありませんよ。その人は自分にできること、やれることを周りもやって当然だと思っています。そしてまた困ったことに、かなり有能だからタッチが悪い。おかげでバカとかアホとかノロマとか散々言われて怒られて。
Her major taunted, smacked and reprimanded her on a daily basis, yet she would always, without fail, wait for her to catch up.
追いかけて追いかけて追いかけて追いかけて。
How far would she take her? What would she show her next? Would she in time become a better subordinate, a person closer to the ideal she represented? And would she eventually grant her words of praise? She toyed with such ideas like a maiden struck by Cupid's arrow. And yet,
行き着く果てのバルハラはこんなところなのですか？
a burst of lightning erupted from the tip of Beatrice's blade, cleaving the cigar between Eleanor's teeth in two, scorching it to ash in an instant.
嘆かわしいですよ。少佐。
What happened to her? What could have changed her so much? Did her true righteous self perish in the fires that consumed Berlin that night? However, her poignant imputation fell on deaf ears.
くだらん。
Eleanor smiled, her eyes remaining closed.
何かと思えば虐待もない。だがちょうどいい。私もまた似たような意味で貴様に聞きたいことがあった。
The lightning speed of her charge had been lauded by all who caught a glimpse of Beatrice Kircheisen on the battlefield. Closing one's eyes before her in the midst of battle was nothing short of suicide. Hardly an attribute that befit a battalion commander with a myriad of battles under her belt. Could this have been a mortal blunder on Eleanor's part? Not at all.
そもそもなぜと近頃思う。些細なことだが、先の向上も含めて鑑みると、なおさら理解できなくなった。
Full of openings, defenseless, her eyes closed, hands locked in front of her chest, head cocked to the side. Eleanor was deep in thought. No matter how one looked at it, it was the perfect chance to strike, one that only a fool would fail to exploit. Yet things were not always as they seemed.
何がです？
No openings would ever blemish the guard of the Crimson Knightness, the fiercest of all in career. Those who knew how to look would be able to tell right away. After all, heat revealing that of a nuclear explosion awaited its chance to burst forth from her skin. One could stop a gas leak, one could stop a fire, but no sane person would think of even approaching an erupting volcano.
まあ、それはおいおい聞こう。
Her eyes remained closed as the signal of the battle echoed almost tenderly.
来るがいい。私に抜かせれば、貴様は終わるさ。
The time for words was past. Further conversation would now be carried on through the battle. A flash of lightning and the Valkyrie's supersonic blade was already at Eleanor's throat. Beatrice had no intention of waiting for a non-existent opening to begin with. To brave the erupting volcano head-on, the courage and willpower required for such a feat was the first wall to be crossed before one could hope to defeat Eleanor von Wittenberg. Fangs that tore out one's jugular the instant they were given the chance. The moment you stopped your advance would be the moment you met your maker. The battalion 3 meant a threat of such caliber. To meet Eleanor's blade in the battle meant mastering the resolve to leap straight into the scorching flames. Her pretentious act of vulnerability was merely the Crimson Knightness way of testing Beatrice's character. And the Valkyrie passed the test with flying colossus. Her abrupt slash, however, could only cut the air in front of Eleanor's face. Rubedo was retreating, the Valkyrie was pursuing.
言われなくても抜かせません。
Beatrice could neither allow her to escape nor could she herself retreat. Maintaining close distance was her only means to victory. Allowing Eleanor to pull out her projectiles to open the gates of the infernal cannon would usher in certain defeat. Beatrice's blade was lacking itself. It danced in the air viciously without mercy, yet never losing its grace. The Valkyrie's strength originated from an entirely different source compared to the likes of Wilhelm or Schreiber, for she was a soldier through and through, a genuine knight. Her finesse was the result of rigorous training, while the countless battles she partook in polished her murderous technique to the point where it could be considered a work of art. She had reached the pinnacle of human capabilities. Beatrice might have received tutelage from the devil, but she never once sold her soul. Nonetheless, her strength only found air, and not flesh. At a glance, the ever-retreating Eleanor might have seemed to be at a disadvantage, but her arms remained crossed, with her expression retained a glimmer of superiority. She couldn't have perceived all Beatrice's slashes with her eyes. They were but ephemeral glimmers of light. Not even the crimson nightness could surpass the speed of lightning. And yet she kept on dodging, taunting the other's blade as it only struck air.
貴様の剣は腐るほど見てきた。
Their difference lay in experience. Although the two fought for the first time, Eleanor knew her subordinate steel like the palm of her hand, and how could she not? The two had braved countless battlefields together and fought side by side on numerous occasions. Moreover, Eleanor had fought Shriba, a beast of similarly breathtaking velocity in the past. Only once, while they still lived as mortals.
そしてここではほぼ毎日この程度の速さは目にしていたよ。
That was Valhalla. Such were the end career. For them, morning meant a set of deadly duels, and with evening came the time for resurrection. After 60 years of their daily life, it was no wonder that lightning could no longer scare her.
所詮奴と私では千日手でろくに勝負もつかなかったが。
Absolute accuracy versus certain evasion, a bout of contradictions.
貴様の知らぬ技も増えたぞ。
A flock of submachine guns manifested behind Eleanor's back.
シュマイザー
Tempest of fire and explosions raged in front of Beatrice's face. It took but a moment for all 20 guns to completely empty their magazines. It was a number not even a Valkyrie could deflect, nor a distance at which she could evade without first breaking off her pursuit. Changing directions, she plunged sideways to escape the barge. The remains of once gorgeous floor tiles scattered all about her in the air, while numerous statues, formerly magnificent works of art, became riddled with holes before shattering into myriad pieces. What on earth?
何をほうけている。
A distance of over 10 meters opened between the two in an instant, and just like that, dozens upon dozens of flaming spears went flying at the bewildered Beatrice. Those were...
パンツァーファースト
yeah, Panzerfaust. What was going on? Either were weapons Eleanor would use. Eleanor's voice echoed over the incoming torrent of destructive projectiles, addressing Beatrice with the tone of a tutor scolding an overly dim-witted pupil.
別に不思議があることはあるまい。あれを動かすのに何千人要したと思う。
1,000 soldiers would be needed merely to operate it, and to account for maintenance and defense, one had to prepare 3 times that number. Eleanor's true weapon was a mobile cannon, as well as a whole battalion operating it.
つまり軍団規模の戦力もあれの一部だ。
なるほど。
Comprehending the situation in an instant, Beatrice's mind regained its calmness. Compared to the barrage of Schmeizers, the onslaught of Panzerfaust was both slower and inferior in numbers. Evading the explosive like a thread going through the panes of countless needles, Beatrice once again homed in on Eleanor. As long as no Gapul's barrage shielded them, her lightning, notably exceeding the speed of bullets, could still get through and pierce any marksman. Unfortunately, Eleanor was far from a regular marksman.
そしてそれらを支配するのは誰だ。
Was the Crimson Knight's type to command their battalion from the safe confines of her tent? In perfect harmony with the rapidly approaching Beatrice, Eleanor too suddenly lurched forward. Her speed was hardly much of concern. Her timing, however, was an entirely different matter altogether. The very moment Beatrice began her instantaneous leap of 10 meters, Eleanor shortened the distance by 3 steps. And not even the electromagnetic Valkyrie could accommodate to the change that swiftly. With her sword still raised high, she rammed her own temple into Eleanor's crafty kick. A clash between the kinetic energy of lightning and a kick infused with monstrous strength, each sheer power defied the scope of language. Beatrice flew backwards, crashing through a pillar before smashing the wall with force enough to send tremors across the whole of the castle.
未熟だよ貴様は。
Without a moment's delay, countless guns pointed their barrels towards the dust-veiled area where Beatrice had landed.
立てい。
Her Schmeizers opened fire. A short cry erupted from beyond the veil of dust, but it almost immediately gave way for the sounds of a blade piercing through resistive metal.
そうだ。それでいい。来い。
As if answering Eleanor, the Maiden of War surfaced from beyond the cloud of dust. Her platinum blonde locks as strikingly radiant as ever, despite being tarnished by a mixture of blood and dirt. She defied subjugation, spitting in the face of defeat, her emerald eyes aflame with unwavering determination as they fixed upon the other woman. The perch of Schweinsters could no longer halt her advance. Cutting down each bullet from the air, she once again launched at Eleanor. After all, she still had so much to say.
私が犯した罪は
She began her aria of self-discipline, self-scorn, and self-depreciation, mixing a redundant phrase or two into it for the sole reason that she liked the sound of them.
心からの信頼においてあなたの命に反したこと
Back in the day, she waved those words as if predicting the future. Was it promotion guiding her back then, or for knowledge?
私は愚かであなたのお役に立てなかった
It was time for her to embrace the sentence of eternal slumber. Her blade-blood soul now belonged to the champion that awakened her. However, she refused to obey men who could not surpass her lieutenant.
だからあなたの炎で包んでほしい
She would not allow anyone else to touch her. She would not let anyone else have her. A useless and dim-witted subordinate she may have been, yet Beatrice still wished for her idol to say that she was irreplaceable. She felt utterly baffled by the childish naivete of her own self. Uttering the words only filled her with embarrassment.
さらば輝かしき我が輩
So how could she expect her of all people to answer words far more befitting a child lost in dreams than a hardened veteran of a warrior? Amidst a torrent of intertwining joy and bashfulness, her weak heart yearned for her lieutenant not to view her as a girl forever shackled by inexperience.
ならばいかなる花嫁にも劣らぬよう最愛の炎を何時に送ろう
She had to show her that Beatrice Kircheisen was no brain healer. I have awoken Major Wittenberg. As a blade forged to pierce the blazing flames, I will redeem you.
我が槍を恐れるならばこの炎を越すこと許さんブリア
Her body electrified, her blade enveloped by lightning. Beatrice could feel her being cold as it transformed to an avatar of divine thunder. Her craving was a prayer, uttered by a girl longing for light upon the battlefield shrouded in darkness. Beneath the cruel gates of skies painted the color of smoke and blood, she prayed for her comrades not to lose their way. She called for the ideal of her beloved superior to shine through it. She wished to guide the warriors to Valhalla, to become a maiden of war, the beacon to pierce through a veil of darkness. And so that virtuous prayer of hers eventually took on the shape of her creation figment. The strength she had shown during her times as a prisoner of the false lands was but a faint glimmer of her true potential. She was no longer the fourth Tubal kind, for this was her true form. A dance of electromagnetic swords, but beating the graceful steps of the warrior princess. No bullet in the world could catch up to her now. Nor the most fervent flames could scorch her.